Hey everybody, happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. I am very excited to bring a veteran of our industry, somebody that you really need when you are trying to purchase a home. And I've been working with him ever since I started in real estate, a lot of years ago, let's just say, right? Well, welcome to our show, Joe. How are you?
I am well, and just happy to be here. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, so glad we finally connected.
Yes, I am super excited to have you. So Joe, tell us about a home inspector. What is a home inspector, and why would anybody want to have a home inspection done?
Well, I mean, home inspectors come in all shapes and forms, but the main thing would be just to try to avoid buying that lemon, um, avoiding those trouble properties, or just getting in over your head. So it's kind of like if you're, I guess you could just use the car analogy. If you're gonna buy a car and you're gonna spend a lot of money on a car, you'd certainly bring it into, you should bring it into the mechanic and say, hey, I'm more than willing to pay for an hour. Let a mechanic get in here and look under the hood and drive it and whatever,
Yeah.
look at the brakes, look at the tires, etc. And the home inspection is exactly the same thing. It's just um, opening up the hood and taking it for a ride. Especially a lot of people buying homes. They're chasing a lot of different properties, and they're just seeing it for a very short amount of time. And it might feel right, it might look right, but you really want somebody to spend some time there and dig a little deeper.
So tell us about Joe Romeo. When did you get started in the business? What brought you to the business? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
So my story is, I was a in the building construction trades for many years, and as a carpenter, mainly as a carpenter, but also did some trim carpenter work, and then I did got my general contractor's license personally, and I always enjoyed it. But I sort of fell into the home inspection business. It was around 2001, and my very first um, introduction to that was my brother and his wife were buying their place, and my brother's a salesman, and his wife, they don't know anything about construction or carpentry or anything like that. So they're buying their first house, and they said, please come out here and meet the home inspector. And so I met the home inspector, and I did stay out of his way. I wasn't too bothersome, but at the end we were chit chatting about what he found and what I saw, and then it was just all fate, I guess. He said, well, our company's growing, you should come meet, you should talk to my boss. And I did. So that's sort of how it happened. It just was never really planned.
But
uh,
these days you are on your own, aren't you?
Now I am, yes. This story was 20 plus years ago. So right around 2008 ish. Great time to go on your own. But right around 2008. So actually, I'll back up. I was working for other company from say 2001 to 2008. I was a local company. I was pretty happy there and had a really close relationship with the owner of the company. And unfortunately, he passed away.
Oh,
And so then the company was sort of in limbo and got passed around, to some other people, and they got bought out by a bigger nationwide entity. And then I just decided that was a good time for me to go on my own, and I'm glad I did.
there
Although
you.
that was scary.
So tell us about a home inspection. I never forget because you were telling me that um, when you first started, you would do your inspection and everything was up here, and you remembered everything, and then you got home and then you downloaded it into a report. Tell us how you are doing your reports these days.
So actually, you might have thought that, but I always, for many, many years, I took notes. So I did have a note taking system, and that way, and it wasn't that I really needed to take notes, but there's a lot of information that you're required to put in the report, like things that you don't want to get home and then, go to type your report and say, oh, well, what was the dryer? Was it gas or was it electric 220? So I always had a cheat sheet for many years. And then actually a few years ago, I made a big departure and I do everything with the camera now. So I take tons of pictures, and I guess in my case, I know what I need to build the report, and I just take a couple hundred pictures per inspection, or sometimes more, sometimes less. But this way, I get all the pictures that I need to build the body of the report, and then always, of course, the famous action items. So the action items are the ones where we say, hey, there's a leak under the house, or hey, this roof, you've got a bunch of broken tiles up here, or, obviously get pictures of those things. And that's how we build the report back in the office. And then just a quick note on that, there are some companies where the inspector will bring the computer out in the field, set it up in the kitchen, and they're running back and forth to the computer, and they're trying to get it all done and go home with no homework per se. But we just feel like doing it that way just takes too long. People don't want to wait 3-4 hours. They have jobs, they have places to go. So do they.
Tired and
Yep. So we're spending the same amount of time, but it's not all in front of you. We do the pictures and the notes, and then you go home and put the report together. That's the best way.
So can you tell our audience about that one recent inspection that you've done for us with the house that had the foundation issue? How did you came across to basically detect that? And thank you for doing that. Fortunately, we had to cancel that escrow because the extent of the foundation issue was a lot more than we could handle. But tell us about that,
sure,
that issue in particular.
So one of the things that our company does, and that we're not required to do it, and most of the other home inspection companies that you'll run into do not do what I'm about to describe. But for homes that have a slab on grade foundation. So if you don't know what that is, there's really only two foundation types in San Diego. You've got raised foundation, which is where we're putting on the suit and crawling underneath the house, the North Park, the University Heights, those areas, usually older homes. And then the other foundation type is called slab on grade. And what slab on grade is usually the newer construction. So if you picture, those, just a home where you go straight in, you don't walk up steps, your Carmel Valley type homes, your newer type homes. We actually use an instrument and measure the levelness of the finished floor. And so normally most kind of normal sized homes, you could be out of level or by an inch or an inch and a half. If say you go from one side of the house to the other, most homes are off by about an inch or less. That kind of be the normal tolerance. Yeah. So we measure. We have a high tech leveling instrument. It's and so we measure. And anyways, on the house you're talking about, Roxanne, we picked up a measurement just from one side of the bedroom to the exterior wall. It was down an inch, just in that bedroom, or more than an inch.
Yeah.
So, and then after we got the measurement, you kind of you're walking around the room and you kind of feel it. After you see the measurement, you feel, you can kind of just feel there's an unusual slope, or maybe maybe an easier way to describe it is almost like a big hump in the floor. And so we put that in the report, and we say, hey, this is not normal. A normal foundation, when it's poured out, is flat and pretty level, and this is unusual. And so I guess in that case, you guys went and got a structural person, and they confirmed that.
They actually said that the house was falling off the cliff because it was up on top of a hill, and they said sliding off the hill. So,
so
that was beyond our scope.
Yes. So, that's definitely and then the thing about that is, sure, if you have a foundation that's with a serious slope in the floor, it is many times repairable. It's not always the end of the world, but it's just expensive.
It's just a question of cost. Exactly.
Yeah. And how many people want to get involved in that? Okay, we're gonna buy this house, and before we can even walk in the door, we've got to spend, 30,000. How much?
$70,000 for
$70,000. So when we find those and we hear those stories, that's great. I mean, we're not to say we're trying to kill deals or anything like that. I mean, we're happy to give the good news out too, but yeah, we do that on every we do that at no extra charge on every slab on grade foundation that home that we inspect. So I feel like it's a really good service.
It's a really good service. So tell us actually, I'm on your website, and let's go under services and maybe start with buyer's inspections, and tell us more about what you have here.
So I guess the majority of our work is on behalf of prospective buyers, and of course you guys know what that means. It's usually somebody that has an accepted offer on a property, which could be any kind of property. It could be a condo, a house, could be units. We do lots of units. We did 35 unit property on Thursday, so we can do those too. But in most cases, there's an accepted offer, and then you have so many days to do your contingency. So you can, it's usually, Roxanne can correct me, but I understand the standard contingency is 17 days. So from when your offer gets accepted, you have 17 actual days to where you can do your investigations, and
that number is negotiable, but yes.
Sure. And a lot of times it's less than that, but so the standard would be 17 days, and I believe that counts weekends and all that. So the time is ticking. So yeah, I mean, we'll go out and we'll get it scheduled, and then I could even talk for not hours, but I could talk about it's challenging to get things scheduled. You guys pick a day and you want to go out there. Oh no, the seller's kids have school that day, or the seller's not feeling well, or the seller's parents are, in town.
They don't want to be bothered. Yeah.
So I got all these challenges just to get things scheduled. But anyways, the key is we get out there and really look at it. Most inspections, if it's a single family home, we're really focused on the main systems, the foundation, the plumbing, the electrical, the roof, heating and cooling systems, interiors, exteriors, appliances. So it's there is a standard that we follow.
Tell us about this one.
So okay, so this is an optional service that we provide, which is sewer scoping, which is eventually all your plumbing, drains, your sinks, your toilets, your tubs, your showers, they all dump into a main. Usually it's a 4-inch line underneath the house. And so if that line has issues, nothing is going to work properly. So on a normal home inspection, we'll run the water, we'll flush the toilets and everything, but it doesn't mimic, let's say you have a big house and you have all the bathrooms are being used, and someone's running the dishwasher all the time, and you've got kids and all, that's really a more accurate test. But we're not able to do that during a home inspection. We can just run the water in the areas, area by area. But so this is where we bring in a specialist to run a camera down the main sewer line. And so by illuminating it and looking, shining a camera in there, and the camera's at the end of a snake, like the way a plumber would run a snake through the drain. And that equipment has come a long ways in the past, a couple decades, where you can actually get a really good look at it, and you can see if there's areas that aren't sloped properly, tree roots, breaks, things of that nature. So it's another smart thing to do, especially with the older inventory out there. The pre-1970s homes have the older cast iron. Most of the newer homes built after 1970, it's ABS plastic piping, which is less likely to have issues, but it still can have issues. And again, it just goes back to that, what we started with is, if that line breaks, if that line is in poor condition and is backing up all the time, it can be a very, very expensive thing to remedy. If you have to, I've seen, we've done inspections on properties where the entire sewer line is underneath an easement. So the entire sewer goes under neighbors adjoining properties.
I had one of those and it wasn't disclosed.
Yep. So imagine if you have to not just replace that line, but just to deal with the all the drama and the bureaucracy and the legality of digging up somebody else's yard. So it's a really smart thing to do, but not everybody does it, and some homes are at higher risk than others. But yeah, that's just that's an additional service that we offer.
So roofs, if you have clay roofs, do you actually walk on those?
No.
I'm glad to hear that. That's good.
Yeah, no. I learned that one really early on. I mean, that was I got lucky when I first got into the business. There was actually a school in Oceanside where they did a 2-week really intensive classroom. And so I knew that before I even went in the field and had to learn it the hard way. That was the first thing I learned. You do not even attempt to walk on a tile roof. There's nothing good that can come of it. It's very dangerous. You can really easily break tiles and just so. Do you want me to keep going on that, or?
Well, so if you can explain to our audience, what's the remedy? If you have a tile roof, how do you inspect it?
All right, perfect. So years ago, it was this simple. We would try. Okay. If it was, interestingly, I don't ever remember getting a call back, not even one on a tile roof. So I guess we got lucky, or we did something right. But on a single story roof, you can lean your ladder up against the edge, and you can get a good look at it that way. You just move your ladder over, 4 or 5 spots on a normal, gable end of a roof, and then do the same thing on the other side. And if there's big issues, you'll see them just by doing that. It's not rocket science. The 2-story roofs are a lot trickier. So 2-story, you're looking at a 24 to 30 foot ladder to get up there, and that's more of a roofer's type work. But with the advent of all this wonderful technology, we use a pole mounted camera. So we actually we put our camera on the tip of the pole. It's like a super long selfie stick, I guess you'd say, 25 or 30. I think the one we use is 25 to 30 feet. And it connects through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or both. It actually connects to the smartphone, and that way we can walk around the perimeter and photograph the roof from all different angles. And on the smartphone here, you can actually, you're not just sending it up there blind. You can see what you're looking at, and you can zoom in on certain areas. You can zoom in on the chimney, for example, and we take lots of pictures. And so we find lots of roofing, clay tile, concrete tile, roofing defects just that way. It's really easy. Well, if all the equipment is working properly, it's really easy. And yeah, we find lots of slip tiles, broken tiles, lots of flashing issues. And if anybody has any flashing questions, you can get me privately.
You can go
I
from
can help you with that. But yeah, all sorts of issues through the technology without ever climbing up there.
So let me ask you this. You've been in the business for a very long time, and you've seen it all. You've come across a lot of different things. So tell us what you see in the market. The market goes hot, the market goes cold. How does, I want to see in your eyes, what do you think of that? How do you adjust to it? What do you see the difference that it makes in your business? You know.
Well, this is just my opinion. I'm not a real estate guru or anything like that. But my personal opinion is that when the market gets really hot, it's not great. I mean, it is great for some people, like people that get in and get out at the right time, and they make a ton of money. You hear those stories, and then everybody tries to copy it. But I feel like, because we work for the buyers, 90+% of the time, when the market's super hot, the buyers, a lot of them, they can't even ask for any credits or repairs, or, sometimes they don't even want to do the inspection because there's no, they can't get in, they can't use the report to their advantage. They can't get anything done. So I don't think that's good at all. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that when the market changes and they pay top dollar for a house, and they either didn't get a home inspection or couldn't get anything back or any repairs done or anything like that. I know that can be really tough on people. So the other thing is from my perspective as an owner of a home inspection company, we were talking about it earlier when I said 17 days, and you said, well, it can be altered. And of course, yeah, they push people to close in 5 days or 10 days. Like a lot of people call over here and said, we only have 7 days to close. So, and it's a Monday, and I say, well, we can get somebody out there day after tomorrow. No, that's way too late. So that's no fun. I mean, you lose out on business for reasons like that. And again, that's just my perspective, but I know that the people buying, they're getting put in a situation too where they have to really make quick decisions, and may not do the inspections or bring out specialty contractors that they may need. They may just forego it. So that's tough.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side is in the normal market, you have 17 days and it's a normal market. Things aren't booming. The buyer will have some leverage. Hey, I just hired this company, and they pointed out all these things. There's leaks under the house, and the roof needs repair, and the electrical system needs upgrades, and blah 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 blah. There's no way we can buy this house at this price. So I mean, I did another one for somebody on your team. I won't mention their name. Their dad was buying a place, and it was an older house. It was just last week, and it was really, really tight to get underneath this raised foundation house. I almost didn't go. I almost couldn't squeeze through, and really by the book, I probably shouldn't have gone because it's just too dangerous to squeeze into one of these little accesses. But I did get in there, and there was a leak coming from the bathroom floor. It wasn't just coming out of a drain; it was coming right through the floorboards. And I had the opportunity to see that agent in your office again a couple days ago, and I asked him, "How'd that go? You know, whatever came of that house your dad was buying?" And the bathroom needs to be gutted to make the repairs, and they got a $25,000 credit.
Yay!
I'm not making that up, so that I wouldn't make it up. So it made me feel so good that they spend a couple $100 with us, and then something great happened.
That is the reason why you want to do a home inspection. Absolutely, it's money well spent. Absolutely.
And not to say that and I don't want to claim that every single one of them turns out like that, because that's that's not an everyday scenario, but it is a scenario that it does happen. So
absolutely,
that was good.
The way that I always say it is, you spend the money on a home inspection, and if you find stuff, you get 10 times that. Hopefully, if there's there's a lot of ifs that go into that. If the seller has enough equity in the house, if the seller is willing to be flexible, if the buyer is willing to stay in the transaction. There's a lot of ifs that go into it, but if all the ifs line up correctly, then then both sides can finish a nice transaction, and everybody gets paid, including the home inspector.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Joe, this was very, very informational. We thank you very much for all of your knowledge and for sharing it all with us. And audience, if you are trying to get a hold of Joe, as we talked about, he's been in the business for over 20 years. Here is his website, and here is his number if you're trying to schedule an inspection. You can also find him on his email, and probably email or website is better than his phone, just in case that he's up on a ladder and trying to inspect a roof. You don't want to make him fall off the roof by giving him a call. Of course, you can text him. That phone number or this phone number also takes text. And if you ever are trying to get a hold of me, here is my cell phone number and my email. And if you are looking for me on Instagram, here it is as well. So if you found this helpful, please give us a like, and we always appreciate your business, your referrals, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Roxanne. It was a pleasure.